This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1002 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today, Dressage Radio Show co-hosts Reese Kofler-Stanfield and Philip Parks chat with DressageToday.com editor Hillary Hebert about the aids in context. And we'll get right to our tip after this important message from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Researchers have confirmed that as horses age, they naturally become less sensitive to insulin and more susceptible to health problems caused by too much sugar in the diet. One way to reduce the sugar content in a horse's diet is to replace sugar-laden grains with a high-fat supplement. Fat is an extraordinary energy source. It is readily utilized by the horse and contains more than 2 times the calories of sugary grains. Equijewel Stabilized Rice Bran is an excellent fat supplement. It contains a balanced calcium to phosphorus ratio and won't cause mineral imbalances when added to the diet. Its all-natural ingredients are high in healthy fat and fiber. Best of all, Equijewel allows owners to easily replace the calories previously supplied by sugary grains. When you need to add healthy calories to your horse's diet, choose Equijewel. To learn more, visit Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
I think it's really important when you're reading an article or getting tips from something like a clinic that you're auditing, I think it's important to understand the level that is being covered. And here would be an example that I think is very relevant. I had one of my students' grandkids come to visit this morning, and she was doing a riding lesson. And it was very funny to me because my student is learning how to have, if the horse falls in, she uses her inside leg to push the horse out. And her daughter is riding and the horse falls in, and I say to her, take your outside rein and, open it a little bit towards the outside and pull. But this girl, is just learning to do the walk. So we're talking about, fundamental, let's just get back to the track. And my student said to me, why is it that you're having her steer with her reins when you just told me not to steer with my reins? And I thought it was a really interesting learning experience for everybody to make sure that you're clear with people, because there's so much in riding that you have to kind of do stuff that maybe down the road isn't going to always be right. For example, steering with the reins, or you have somebody who's just learning to ride, you stop by, squeezing with the reins. You say to somebody 5 years later as they're riding around and they say to you, well, why is it that I don't need to pull with the reins to stop? Now you're having me do it with my feet. They have to understand that now they have body control enough that you can ask for that. And that's not something a beginner can do. But I always find it sort of interesting because I get that question a lot of, why is it that for years you've been having me do X, Y, or Z, and now we're doing this and it's different? And they need to understand because they're kind of moving to the next level.
I think that's an awesome point. I also had an experience today. I have a rider that we have the opportunity. We have a new schoolmaster, and he's a Pre-St. George machine. But, we're just learning how to do flying changes, and we're just learning, shoulder in and half passes and all this stuff. And it was funny because her friend was next to me and said, oh, she should be doing this and she should be doing that. And I said to her, all in due time. Right now, I need her to, I have a very clear vision on what I'm trying to teach her right now. And I think that that's really important as you go through to know sometimes, we teach, instructors have people from beginners to Grand Prix, and you kind of know the progression. Sometimes when you come in and you may say, oh, she needs to learn this. And it's like, wait a minute, it's not in the progression that I want to teach her. And that's a little bit what you're talking about, is you had a progression on what you were teaching the beginner rider toward a more advanced rider. And I think that that's important to know that. And I think it's important when you read any information that, like you said earlier, it's important to know the level that it's directed toward, because that's a big deal. Because I do have students that come in and they say, oh, I should be doing this with my legs and I should be doing that. And, they're far below that level of, they can comprehend it with their brain, but they're not quite there with their body. So we do talk about that. So I think that was a really interesting way to think about it. So that was a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that applies to riders as we teach them, and horses too, right? You can't ride a 4-year-old like a Grand Prix horse. It's very important that the horses learn, the progression. When you've gone through the levels as a rider and as an instructor, you have an idea of where you want to go, but you can't just go there, with a snap of your fingers. Even, great riders have to teach the horses as they come along through the levels and as they get better balance and better energy. And, it's just, one thing after another. And when you've, if you're a new rider or even if you're, an experienced rider who's attempting a new level, these things start to come together. And that's why you need an instructor to put you on the right path. And, why young horses need a good rider to put them on the right path. Not necessarily teach them PF massage at 4 or 5 years old, but to get the components that will be necessary when they are ready for that, riders and horses. You guys were just talking mainly about riders, but it comes together in the same way. It's educating riders and horses towards the highest levels of competition, and there's a way to do that, and the way to explain certain things very simply and to focus on the right thing at the right time. Right. So again, all this information, that we talk about, that is in the magazine and is on the websites, it's all within a context of, for this horse and this rider at this particular time, this is an important point to learn and something to focus on at this time. And then later on, as an instructor that teaches, certain people in like monthly intervals in clinics and types of things, you just say, and then you come back and the person fixes a problem or the horse gets fixed in a certain way. And then you say, okay, that goes out the window. Now we need to focus on something else. And the inside leg is a very important example of this, because when we teach young horses to balance, we do, I especially do a lot of leg yielding and pushing them towards the outside rein. And once they got that, it now becomes a problem of drifting through the outside rein. And all of a sudden you have to, as you're working from first level to second level, now you have to kind of close your outside rein and ride the horse from the outside back to the inside a little bit. And then, people say, and just like you said, Hillary, like, oh, I've been using my inside leg. I've been doing lots of leg yield. This is great. And then I say, okay, it's done now. Right? The horse is to the outside rein. It is good. So just trying to give a little bit example of that, whether it's just a horse, a horse that you're schooling, or whether it's a horse and rider that you're schooling. Not everything is not all the information is great, because it needs a little bit of context about how high the horse is trained and how much the rider knows.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed Reese and Phillip chatting about all things dressage, you can tune in every week at dressageradio.com, or you can have every single one of your favorite Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go by downloading the free app for iPhone or Android. Just go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. Download it today. It's quick, it's free, and it's easy. This podcast has been brought to you through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and listeners like you. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.